Welcome back to Wettie TV for another local shore dive here in Auckland. Today we're going to be working right up in the shallows and see what we can find. As you can see by the sunlight, I've got it all poorly planned. We're swimming straight into the sun, which is not ideal for hunting snapper. Makes it very difficult to see, especially with the low light early in the morning. I have bad eyesight at the best of times, so this makes it very difficult to spot the fish. Luckily, a couple of opportune moments, I pick up a couple of snapper that were resting right up in the shallows after a big night of feeding with the full moon. Along with this, straight away, my dive buddy starts off where she finished with a nice John Dory in only 2 meters of water. I do my best to sneak through the shallow area and go really quietly low in the kelp, so if there is a snapper there I have a bit of time to spot it before it gets away. You'll see here the sun's directly in my eyes on this barren white ground. Although not very good looking ground, I'm making my way out deeper to try and use the sun to sneak back and check over small ledges and get lucky like this with a snapper parked up behind this small ledge. I headed out to sea and then worked my way back in towards the coast with the sun at my back so the snapper couldn't see me. If you swim quietly through these areas, even though it looks very barren, you can still find snapper parked up in them. Here's a bit of a demo on me snooping over a rock. This is just a bit of a setup, but I actually do shoot something. You see this is a nice kelpy area. I'm taking my time to move my way down this ledge. Down on the bottom it's dark and kelpy, so a snapper could appear anywhere. I am making a couple of mistakes. My fins are probably moving a little bit too much and a bit high in the water column, but I am keeping low in the kelp. And I get lucky and shoot a nice butterfish. Although not what you're typically targeting with snapper snooping, still would like a butterfish to add to the catch. Also, don't forget, in these shallow areas you see this kelp here with the holes in between. You'll get snapper parked up in this, so if you're unsure where you should look, you can swim over the stuff and check for snappers in between the kelp. I covered that ground and got to this nice prominent rock, and just on the other side here there's a white gutter here. Not great for holding snapper, but often there can be snapper in places like this. I take my time and actually spot this nice snapper that's mooching around in this gutter. A long shot, so I chased after the fish just to make sure the spears made it all the way through. Although low in the body, it's a pretty good shot, and luckily you see here there's nothing for it to tangle up on. In these sandy rocky areas on the coastline, sometimes there's snapper in it, sometimes there's not. You want to try and align it with the high tide, because the fish will move into these shallow areas with high tide and with low swell. This was our 4th snapper for the morning, so we were pretty happy with that to start off with. So I thought we'd try and look for something different. My dive buddy here is filming. I found a nice crayfish in this kelpy area. Not very deep water, only maybe 4 meters, 5 meters of water. And I'll show you how to miss a crayfish. I'm obviously a little bit out of practice. I make a couple of mistakes here. I probably wait too long and the crayfish is starting to begin its retreat. A clean miss it. So I quickly rush the other side of the rock just to see if it's popped out the other side. Annoyed at this as this is the first crayfish I've seen that's decent size. I'm back in there with my torch and spending a lot of time working, looking in all the holes around this boulder. I've chased him from one side to the other, back to the other side. I finally managed to get hold of him. It only took me about 10 minutes to try and outsmart the crayfish. Now here's a bit of a comparison between the two main species of crayfish we normally encounter here in New Zealand. It's very important you know your differences between crayfish, as there's different ways to measure them. Like the one before I caught, there was a red crayfish, and so is this. This is a legal red crayfish and a nice vertical crack. And this is a packhorse crayfish. Although very similar size to the red crayfish from before and legal size for a red crayfish, it is not big enough for a packhorse crayfish. Packhorse crayfish need to be much bigger than red crayfish to be legal, so it's very important you know the difference between the two. Here again is another packhorse crayfish, a little bigger but still not big enough. A lot of new divers that are getting into catching crayfish will get excited and grab this crayfish, but as you see here, I'm measuring from the first calcified bar to the end of the tail with my Wettie measure here, and as you can see it's too small. Although this fish is well big enough for a red crayfish, it's not big enough for a packhorse, so must be returned immediately. Although I only got one crayfish, that's enough crayfish for me as I don't need a lot of it. Every time I go diving I try and get myself a mixed bag and try eating different species. Here's a group of goatfish. Although normally overlooked and normally treated as a prey for John Dory and other predatory fish, these do make good eating. It's a good way to perfect your technique for hunting all different types of fish, as even big goatfish can be hard to spare sometimes. I wait on the bottom here and wait for a decent sized one to come in. You don't always have to be out there shooting snapper and kingfish and teraki and John Dory. There are other fish to spare, especially in winter time. All around the world they eat goatfish. We're just a little spoiled here in New Zealand. So you see what I'm doing here, I'm preparing by getting all the scales off the flesh, and I'll gut and gill it. These make really great whole fish, especially shallow fried as the skin goes very crispy, or put on the barbecue. It's worth a try next time you're out. While I'm doing this, as per usual, my dive buddy's got another John Dory and I still haven't even seen one. I'm too busy trying to shoot goatfish. Grab another decent sized goatfish to add to that one, and this will make for a good meal if I cook 2 whole goatfish, either on the barbecue or, as I said, shallow fried. With this we head back to the beach. Another successful shore dive local here in Auckland. My dive buddy cleaned up on the John Dory again with 3 John Dory, me 0, and we also managed to get 4 nice eating snapper along with some goatfish, butterfish, a nice crayfish and even a kahawai. All very accessible for anyone that wants to go for a local dive.